You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. I am one of your hosts, Anna. I'm here with another one of your hosts, Paul, and we decided that today we would just talk amongst ourselves a little bit about something that is near and dear to both of us because it's been a part of our lives, I think, for like forever, and that is puzzles and adventure games.
Yeah. I mean, kind of believe it or not, we've never really just talked about puzzles and adventure games. Okay. One might argue that we've talked about puzzles and adventure games, say, every episode we've ever done. To which I would say that's fair. Tough but fair. But no, we've never actually sat down and just focused on the different types of puzzles.
Right. So we've come up with like a loose setup of categories. We're going to talk about some puzzles. It's my hope that maybe we can place some of those puzzles within the framework of categories that we've set up. And, maybe somebody out there could tell us about puzzles that they're interested in later on. I know that, a lot of the time I get a bit of a blank when I'm doing a puzzle in an adventure game. And as a kid, my dad would always say to me, you need to walk away from the game and maybe even go have a little sleep and don't think about it. And then when you go back to it fresh, you'll be able to think new about it and maybe see something you didn't see before. And I think that really helped me get through things when I was younger.
Absolutely. And Troell's the Space Quest historian. I don't think I'm saying his name right. That's like like I should just say Trolls as he said before, and then you try and say it righter than that because native tongue writer, and then you just fuck it up even worse. Just fantastic, good stuff. So sorry about that, but anyway, he does a great job of explaining it retrospectively. Explaining the time in a sense where he's really trying to relieve some slack off of the crazy difficult puzzles that might be found in AGI Sierra games or even Zach McCracken early Lucas games and stuff like that, and he's just I'll link the video in our description. Damn it, me for saying that because I know the future work. Paul is like, you bastard, I don't know which video that was. Now I gotta dig bloody through it. And all right, so anyway, the point of his video is similar to what you're saying, where it's he lays it out as going to sleep and thinking on it, as you said, or driving to work and home, and basically how to justify these insane puzzles from back in the day when it's this is the only video game you had for 8 months before the next one came out. So that's what you did. You figured it out.
People may go down on that these games were too hard or set up to be unwinnable or set up just specifically to sell hint books. And many of those might have been true. But as a kid, I didn't know any of that stuff. And I didn't know they were supposed to be unwinnable. And like you said, I didn't have anything else to do. So I figured it out, not right and not at full points. And, I would probably miss a whole bunch of stuff, but I would figure it out and I would get through it. And I would always feel like I'd accomplished something at the end, for sure.
Yeah, it was the rushing home from school to try the idea you thought of, yes. When you should have been paying attention in class or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And Trolls, again, just romanticizes it so well that all I would do is accidentally rip him, subconsciously rip him off. And I don't want to do that, so I'm going to link his video if anybody wants to go down that rabbit hole, because it's just awesome, because it is more observational, I think, than opinional. I don't know if that's a word, but it can be, because this is a bloody make believe show. To give the listeners a little bit of an idea of where we got the idea to do this episode was just from doing research for the game that we're developing and that we're working on, the Phantom Fellas, was myself going down this really late night rabbit hole using the Wayback Machine and going to you go into Sierra Gamers and Adventure Gamers and Scum VM, I guess kind of specifically with a few little little detours, and just looking at all kinds of archived forums and things like that. I mean, the Wayback wasn't necessary for all the places I went, possibly not even the three I mentioned with a few exceptions with Sierra, but it doesn't matter. That's super nerdy. It doesn't matter. Okay, that's on brand for the podcast, but it still, does not matter. What does matter is that my point in doing so was just trying to obviously come up with the best possible puzzles I can. And I think to do that largely involves, and always has from the beginning, but just to try and refine that even more, revolves around what people are liking nowadays as far as, in adventure games and things like that from the more modern ones that have come out, etc. And even so too, like what they love from the classics, which is what we're going to mostly, if not totally, focus on today.
Actually brings up, that's a funny point, and a lot of people don't love adventure game puzzles from the past. It's not a lot of the ones we're talking about anyway. I mean, a lot of people did, fair. But like, if you're talking like over, not our audience, of course you all love them, right? But outside of that,
even ours, I bet it's probably surprising, because there's some games that make you wish you could just go along with the story. There really are. As much as I'm not necessarily a fan of like running errands in games either. Hence the difficulty and fine balance and da-da-da. But you're fine. You're right, because that's funny. If I was to hear that my own sentence back that way, I would only got to agree with it. If it was just like out of context, like, the adventure game puzzles we love from the past, to be like, well, which ones? Honestly. I mean,
the ones that we had to
few,
sleep about. The ones that like stopped us from like completing a game that we were into, or like they're a badge of honor, but nobody cares about it.
The badge of honor for those puzzles back in the day doesn't even exist digitally. Yeah. It's a shame.
In no way, shape, or form. Like, what am I going to run to school? Like, some people had friends that were interested, and that's fine. But I wasn't running to school and saying, oh my God, I actually now have half the points needed for like completion of King's Quest 4. Can you believe that I found like the bow and arrow and I knew what to do with it? And the first time I didn't know what to do with it, and I shot all my arrows randomly, and then I didn't have enough to finish the game. But then the next time I played it and went through it, I didn't wantonly use my arrows, and I was able to complete the game. Like, who cares? Nobody cared.
Nobody care. You know what? I know we care. All right, all of us. I think everybody listening agrees. Lining up for hugs and whatnot. We care. Damn it! I'm proud of you.
That's good. Because King's Quest was mean about that. Limited use. Thanks, but limited use items like don't cross the bridge too many times, but you won't find out till later. And, I often that didn't affect me as much because I just crossed the bridge a whole bunch of times. Because like once bitten, twice scorned. I don't know, or twice bitten. I don't know how it goes. But as soon as I found out once that a bridge was a limited use item, I would save the game and cross the bridge a whole bunch of times and be like, is this one of those bridges? It's like staircases. I'd be suspicious of bridges and staircases, generally.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, to an almost traumatic level of scale, considering how much it affects my daily life.
It's true.
I'm actually sitting next to a 20-foot ladder in an effort to exercise some exposure therapy.
Before the episode, he spent like 20 minutes trying to fit it into his pocket in some sort of Space Quest haze. And
yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, I didn't have time to go get the Tupperware out with the Jenkos in it. It would have fit in them for sure. All right, but anyway, we got a list of generalized. Oh no, here comes my loud friend. I hope I told him we were doing this tonight. A list of generalized categories. I guess you could say, right? So that we're going to run through, and I guess the point of like the origin with this whole thing a second ago, with going down this rabbit hole of puzzles and why it's relevant to the episodes, because what I was really searching for was old swing and a miss, old forum posts. Phew, that was oddly difficult. that were people asking just the most common, probably I'm new to a Facebook forum question, which is, what is your favorite puzzle in an adventure game? Just nice and simple. No. It's almost odd how little there was. I'm not saying there's a little. I'm just saying for what I expected, like there wasn't as much as I was kind of thinking, because it's like, I guess people tend to get maybe more into nuanced questions as opposed to just like, what favorite puzzle? And that's what I was looking for. Like, I just wanted like the bare bones, like, let's break it down by the category. What do you guys like? And whenever you look for the best, we all can't help but kind of throw in a little jab of what's the worst. And I'm sure I'll do that later because it's, jabs are fun.
Yeah, that's what everybody always ends up focusing on. And I do remember, like, as much as I made fun of it earlier, like, I'm sorry, adventure game puzzles, I do love you. Because if it's not only is it rewarding to complete them and good for my brain, it is fun, and finding what's wrong to do is just as much fun as finding out what's right to do. So there's a lot going. It's really complicated. I mean, even from the developer side, thinking about you, Phantom Fellows, just because you can think of a question and an answer doesn't mean that other people can think of it in the same way because they don't see what you see. And so there's just so many complex dimensions to adventure game puzzles.
Yeah, it is really difficult, and this isn't a new thought, I guess, for anybody listening to our show, but it's like that perfect. It's really difficult to hit that perfect pocket of not immediately understandable or recognizable, and also not frustrating and rage quitty. Mm-hmm. It's like and then understanding that, like, the it's not really about, I don't think, intelligence or IQ or anything like that. It's just certain people think in different ways. Whether you want to group that into like 7 basic types, like a love language, which is what I'm basing that on because I'm not a certified doctor or whatever. But if you were to just kind of generalize like certain categories of people, like 5 out of the 7 might totally see it that way, but like 2 of them aren't, and like you're just not gonna. But like there are puzzles that are in that pocket where just everybody just has at least the potential to figure it out themselves in the right amount of time. And anyway, so we're going to go over that today. And the last thing I'll say as far as developmental purposes is that for the lesson learned, I can spare you guys all like a 20-minute thing and just say that the what I'm taking from all of this is that including the video from Trolls, is what we once had the patience of 3 months plus for, we now have the patience for about 20 to 30 minutes for. And like you can fight that all you want, but like it's just the way it is. And I think with that in mind, it's almost like building things to scale, where it's like, all right, so you remember this puzzle, how can we get it to like 1/10 of the goddamn length and difficulty of that? Because that's the amount of patience that people have nowadays, or just time people have nowadays. So yeah, the end. Fantastic. Where do you want to start on our list of different types of puzzles?
Well, I'm going to go in with a puzzle I respect, a puzzle with immediate consequences. Something like, if you, Laura Bow 2, if you're talking to the doorman and you give your press pass to the doorman at the speakeasy, she'll get mugged. It's game over. Or in like Quest for Glory, if you try to hit the guard, he'll beat you up and it's game over. Like there's always like that reason. And it happens immediately, but at the same time, like it doesn't give you warning. So people could complain, oh, well, that's not very cool because all of a sudden you're trying something and it doesn't warn you. But then a seasoned player would say, well, obviously before you try something random like beating up a guard, you would save your game.
Man, that's such a loaded first thing to jump in with. Geez Louise, because that sends me in 2 directions. The latter is, I guess, a good segue into the next kind of puzzle, but I'll never remember that from here. So, but the first one is kind of, yeah, like, right. This is where like half of the audience kind of gets off the train, and they're just like, no, that's not my stop. I don't do deaths. I just don't.
Why are the numbers so low on that episode? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just so rigid, that's just the way it is. And I guess I don't know. It's also one of my favorites. So why don't we both just give as concise as we can, state our case, and go to the next one, because
Well, there's immediate consequences versus warning. I've noticed in newer games, it'll usually like say, okay, yeah, maybe that's not a good idea. And in a lot of the older games, it's like, oh, dead. So like in the older games, you had to be on a 5 or 10 minute save cycle with some sort of monitoring system to understand that that's just going to happen all the time. So to me, it's funny. It just adds content, especially if you're with a game for a long time. So that's not putting it in a modern context at all. But in the context of me, that was the time when I solved a lot of these adventure games by myself. Compared to like, okay, now I'm solving adventure games by myself, but they're modern adventure games. Like I wasn't looking up hints of really for the Blackwell games.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. So the first thing you said brings up an interesting point as well, as far as like turning into quite a branching labyrinth here. Because you said that the modern games tend to handle it with warnings, which to a degree is something that I'm using, while also just being crazy sparing to almost a novelty, just for the sake of it, for the Sierra fans that need it, let's say, kind of thing. But the warning is yeah, it's like a halfway road. But like, how do you feel about the warning? Because it's got to bloody, I don't know. It there's a cost, right? There's a price for everything, and the warning takes, it takes a lot away from it. I don't know. What do you think?
It's kind of like Thimbleweed Park, or a game that's giving you the option of easy. Like, is there a setting in a game for like you can play it as LucasArts or you could play it as Sierra? I guess you'd know going into a game what you're looking for pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, and I guess I guess it always, everything we're going to talk about this whole episode is going to be like one of those. Just for any future pedantics, is going to be one of those. It's all circumstantial, right? There's always exceptions. Blah 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 blah. So there's the thing. Bloody tune to whatever timestamp to hear that. So because there are, but yeah, I mean,
because Gold Rush warns you in some ways. Right? If what is it? If you're taking the mule, you're going overland, and then you get attacked. You can't win, but like you're literally told in the game, this is going to be what's going to happen if you go this way. If you're taking the time to read all of the text and dialogue in a game like that, often it'll direct you. But at the same time, this game is like, do you realize you're on a timer? And if you don't hurry up and buy your house and do your thing and go to the grave and do everything in the right order, in the right way, you're limiting yourself. No, but at the same time, okay, so you don't do as well and you can only go one route. The next time you play, you're like, okay, well, that's fine. I still got a route, but I'm going to want to try a different route next time, because it's like, it's a long-term game and it's a long-term project. So going on that side of things, I can respect that.
Absolutely, yeah, and to the circumstantial thing, I guess with myself implementing it a little bit with the Phantom Fellows, it's like it does check that list where there's alternate routes, let's say, so it serves, I guess it serves that purpose well, and then there's, I don't know, I guess there's those things where it's like, from a developmental point of view, I would say that like it's if I can't fault it, because from where I'm coming from, I could either just not put in this other room with art that nobody's seen yet and just not do the thing, or we can do the thing and it comes with a warning, and you know what I mean? So it's like, if there's only kind of one way to serve it up, do you want to take it or leave it, I guess, is ultimately what I'm saying. Because I can think of one or two things in the game, in this game, in the Phantom Fellows game, where it's like I wouldn't have done it at all if I was under the impression that 80% of the people would be like revolted by the idea of like, what's the point of doing if there's just going to be like a warning? It's like, well, I mean, okay, then we could just not do it at all. But there's like a tiny animation and like a whole new art thing. And if I was playing a new game, like the more, how it is, the more new rooms, especially those cool little bonus rooms. Like, God, Sierra did that so well. Like the factory and Larry and the studio, behind the scenes studio and Larry, etc. But yeah, anyway, I'm babbling. But
well, you're kind of trying, from what I hear, you're trying to make a classic game idea viable to a modern game player.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, right? How to preserve how to preserve certain charming aspects, right, of the past without getting trapped. And as you alluded to earlier, Thimbleweed Park does a really good job of doing that, even just on hard mode, let's say. Yeah. So Anyway, that's definitely the consequences thing is really polarizing. It's just I don't understand vehemently not liking it. I totally understand my own perspective. Crazy, which is just that sometimes I'm in the mood for it and sometimes I'm not. But to not want it at all is just a bit odd, because we've already said before in other episodes, like it's weird because every other genre of video game is forgiven, allowed to have deaths, and almost all the time relies on them. And if not relies on deaths, like a shooter, relies on consequence, because that would cover racing and sports games as well, where consequence is the thing that gets your heart race up, right? Where it's like that's kind of like the whole, like, that's what life is. It's the price to pay thing. And if you if you bet nothing on it, or if you whatever, then the payoff maybe isn't as great. And that's how games without consequence do not always, by any means, look at Thimbleweed Park, as we just said, but sometimes can feel like running errands, where it's like I'm just doing chores, I'm just checking off a list, because like I have no. And obviously that can be completely remedied with great storytelling and mechanics and puzzles and things like that. I'm just saying it may be perhaps a little bit on the back foot for people who like consequence, because it doesn't happen. And then I guess that brings me to my ultimate point, which is I don't understand when I say people who like consequence. I know that's everybody, because 99% of the population, because we all in some degree enjoy something that gets your heart rate up, whether it's again watching any sort of sports, even playing chess. The competition, I guess you could say, right? The things like that where there's consequence. So it's just weird that like adventure games is like this one thing in the world where when there's consequence in it, like a lot of its fans are like, no, are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? I'm dead. I have to start all like it's like, Jesus Christ, like in Mario, if you died, like you had to start way, way, way back at the beginning. Like it's, at least you have save games. I know it takes 6 seconds to load them, but good God, man. So I don't understand it, and that's okay, because I don't have time to animate tons of deaths for the game anyway.
That's why you just give them a little bit as a nod, but like not make it so that they die every single time. They don't put on a lubber when they go to have sex with the prostitute.
Yeah, exactly. And disclaimer for the record, my game takes place during days like April Night. There's one death a day. And to do it, you have to do something that should kill you. And right now, you're getting warned for it. But I think all of them, because I'm not like firmly taking a stance. I'm being real unattractive in the eyes of a female, probably. I'm being a flip flopper. I'm not standing by what I believe in necessarily, because I don't really know what to do right now. But right now, there's one a day, and we'll just see about the rest. Anyway,
I think modern day warnings probably warranted. You've got other things and quick saves and stuff. I think that having the ability to know you're about to die is like the ability to know you're about to get a hint.
Right, yeah. Like you said, for the modern time, people just, I including myself, it's not a people like I'm on a high horse thing. Like
it's not you people, it's all us.
Yeah, us, exactly. Like all the I've played every Wadget Eye game except for Primordia, which is no offense, I just didn't get to it before I started making this one. But like played all those games, and I don't have time for like kind of dicking around, because I have tons of games to play and they all look awesome. So it's like I'm just really I'm trying to walk that line, right? But anyway, let's move on to the rest of our puzzles. We have a cool little list here. What do you think next?
I've given a couple already. You go ahead and give an example.
Okay. All right. So for one of the more popular ones on the forums was they love the randomized outcome or placement of a solution. Right. So like an example of what I mean, because it sounded like a lot of words. I don't know how to reword it on the fly. But a good example would be like most of Fate of Atlantis. So like right. they from the forums, from all the reading, like the players really seem to like just even the idea of randomized outcomes. You know what I mean? Where the placement for a solution to something is random, or the cutscene itself is random, or whatever. Like they seem to like the idea of it. Like a lot of them, I remember were mentioning Fate of Atlantis, let's say, particular puzzles in it, and being like, I haven't replayed it, but I like knowing that if I ever do, that blah 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 blah. And it's like, wow, they like even just the idea of it. It's kind of like it's a perk, or it's like, well, they're not going to replay it. Well, it doesn't matter. Just knowing that if they did, they could get something different goes a long way.
Well, I guess it's any of our classic games, obviously, because you miss stuff, you could replay it. But LucasArts does it in a particularly linear fashion. As soon as things moved away from parser to point and click, I was just, you've probably seen me do it if I'm doing like beta testing or something. As soon as I don't know what to do, I start clicking everything on everything to figure out the puzzle. What goes with what, where, what have I missed to talk with people? I have like a rote order of operations that only works in point and click games to figure out puzzles. And that's outside of like generic, here's a puzzle you need to like specifically figure out.
Yeah. Well, and it's great you say that too, because transitioning into easily the most popular type of puzzle from again this rabbit hole. Let's just generously call it research for now, because I stutter and pause every time we come up to it because I don't know what to say. Was that people's favorite was combining inventory, and it just makes me wonder if, like, because I do the same thing as you, like that's the go-to. It could be like, you teach people how to treat you. Maybe Sierra and LucasArts taught us to treat adventure games that way. I don't know, perhaps it's that, perhaps it's a mix of it being a lot of players' favorite thing to do, right? Because it's like in a panic, we could just as easily start re-talking to people or looking around the room we're in again. But it seems to be like that's our first thing that we do. And from everything I was reading, the combining inventory, what I basically did was put together what we would call in Colorado a stoner's pie chart, which is just where you just have like your notes application and your phone open, and you just lazily write stuff down to where your future self will loosely understand it. And so I kind of just put it into percentages, again, very loosely. I am not a magician. And it was like 70-ish percent. It kept coming back to one of the following three answers. All right, check this out. This is as data-y as this episode gets, probably, unless you got something. Okay, 70% of the answers is one of these three. Unabashedly, wow, previous me, take it easy. Unabashedly nominating inventory combo puzzles as their favorite. Okay, so number one is they love them, and just let's deal with it. Number two is they nominate inventory combos as their favorite, but list more complicated or refined examples as a preemptive defense. So there was also this weird thing going on where people felt weird about saying that, and I was just kind of picking up this vibe that they felt like they needed to dress up their examples so that somebody wouldn't be like, oh, you're just clicking inventory on inventory, and smashing two things together. And so they would kind of give, and I'm not saying that the more refined examples aren't the best examples of it, because they are, and you should strive for more than just smashing things together, right? But it was just the way they delivered it was like this preemptive, like, don't come at me for saying inventory combining, because it can be great, and they're right. And then the last one was that they nominate something else that's not combining inventory puzzles, but then after closer scrutiny, it reveals that it was just a complex inventory puzzle that they worded differently. It's not an inventory puzzle, but basically, and it's like, okay, that was an inventory puzzle. Fantastic. So,
disguised as not, but is.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's the art personally, because I think there may be more satisfying in point and click era than parser, and just seeing something go from, I don't know, when you click it on something, all of a sudden it morphs into this new thing, right? Is that the high?
Well, the high is seeing things morph, or seeing things happen, or seeing points go up. It depends on the game. What about seeing points go down? What do you think of that? There are some games where it's like, okay, you can do that, but did you notice you just lost 2 points, by the way, when you did that as a puzzle?
Yeah, that's funny. Does Larry do that? I think Sierra maybe just does it jokey every now and then if you do something stupid. I think Larry does it once where they dock you like tons of them and they give it back.
Yeah, that's it. Some of the games are just when you do something really stupid, or they'll mock you. Depends, right? Like if you do something really stupid in Quest for Glory 2, the narrator mocks you, like not out loud, like obviously, but in text, stuff like that.
Yeah, but as far as talking points in like a meaningful way, I would say I'm kind of impartial to it because I guess because especially growing up, having played very like little other genre of games, like points. And it's weird, I guess, saying it out loud, but because my first games were Sierra Parser games, but I never really paid attention to points.
Yeah, I think Larry too does that actually.
Is that the one?
If you use your hair rejuvenator on your head, which is where you're like supposed to use it, it takes away points. I remember that. Or if you like use the parachute wrong. But again, yeah, it's doing the same thing. It's just like it's going to take away. I think it must make a noise. I don't totally remember because I haven't played a game where I've lost points in it, but I think it signifies.
Yeah, I might even be so bold as to say like that's kind of the adventure gamey way to do points because like coming from just myself as somebody who doesn't. I don't pay attention to points because I don't play a lot of games where points matter. Like I'm not an arcade kind of person either, so. So I never really paid attention to the points. Another thing too was like I don't have that built-in wiring where like I want to get 100. Some people just
never
have that.
Right?
That. Sometimes
Completionists.
I'm totally envious of it because it serves them well in other areas, but I don't have it.
I know. No.
The point is
I'm like
I've
done the game. The game is done. Did you finish it good? I finished it.
Isn't that enough? It was a goddamn Sierra game. You played Gold Rush when you were 12? Fuck out of here. Offline, like totally offline, no walkthroughs. Anyway, I would probably maybe say that's like one of the best adventure gaming ways to do points, just because it's like, I don't know, like arcade sequences, which was totally a Sierra thing. They're bad.
Like Space Quest had a lot of those. You're like, wow, I'm doing great. Oh, I can't make it here. Or if you don't play an arcade game, you can't. If you can't get a decoder ring in like 3, right? If you don't get the kids' meal and you don't get the thing, and then you can't get the message in, sorry, spoiler, Astro Chicken, and then you can't advance the plot.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like yeah, put in all the little sequences that you want. Just put a skip button. If it totally changes genre, please let me skip it because I don't like that stuff. But my point is like Larry. Like if I was to have done a point system, I would have done it just for that purpose, right? To get a few laughs in. And that's definitely like team of programmer shit right there. Because goddamn.
I like to try an arcade sequence a couple times before I'll hit a skip. Like there's something about me that does want to like really give it my college try. Like arcade, you ever been stopped by an arcade game in a game and you've really like, for me, you really need to take the time to get good at it and its controls so that you could finish the game. There's no other way, like land that chicken or whatever it is you're going to do.
Yeah. That makes me think about it too, because it's like I'm almost wondering if it's like the second you start to get a feel for it. I'm thinking of Space Quest 1, for example. Like this, the second you get a feel for it, you're there, right? Like by the time you get a feel for it more accurately, you can pretty much get to the Yulin's Flats. Which I'm not afraid to say that just a year ago I learned was flatulence backwards. So
yeah, I didn't know either. And people are like, "What? You didn't know?" And I'm like, I didn't even know other people played these games until a few years ago.
Yeah,
I'm a little out of date. Some of my information is not very good. It's like based on being 12.
Crazy, yeah.
Well, if you're 12, you should have gotten it. Ha ha! I wasn't that smart.
It's like when there's 20 of you and the other 18 are laughing. Like, what the hell, guys?
It's like, oh man, I'm the dumb one in this group too.
Oh shit! Gonna have to put that laugh on a separate quieter track. Goddamn.
But yeah, okay. What about puzzles that are totally time based? They can be stressful too. I think I talked about that a little bit earlier. Something like King's Quest 3, or even the beginning of Gold Rush, like I alluded to earlier. That's a specific type of puzzle. I don't know if I like that because I never played King's Quest 3 without a hint book.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like them. That's a good point. I'm thinking of did you already say Larabow?
I haven't brought it up in this instance.
And which one did you say besides King's Quest earlier?
When the value, just in Gold Rush, the value of the house goes down, stuff like that.
Right. Thank you. Oh yeah. Okay. And I do defend and love Gold Rush, so I'm glad I asked that before I sound like a hypocrite. I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because it's frankly it's more fun.
You don't know there's a timer the first time you played it, so technically, if you only played Gold Rush once, you wouldn't even know. But you probably also then wouldn't have been able to try all of the different scenarios.
Yeah. Okay. See, boy, you're good. That was really good. Man, I have to itch the inside of my ear, but if I take the thing out, it might disconnect me. So, just want everybody to know where I'm at. I'm going to say I hate timers, and even Gold Rush, as much as I love it, I totally could have done without it. It didn't do. That's bad consequence, right? That's almost like like forced. What do you call fabricated? There's a better word than all the previous ones. That goes for everything I've said this whole episode, but like it's just I don't know. Just stick with forced for now. Where it's just like you're creating like a artificial. I think that's what I was looking for, like a really artificial sense of consequence just by saying like and go. Like I was watching a film the other day. I'm just gonna stop and shit on real quick, which is The King's Man, and I loved the first two. Have you seen it? The third one?
No, not yet.
Okay.
The King's Man?
Yeah, it's the third one to the first two Kingsman movies. Did you see those?
No, I don't think so.
Terrific. All right, great. Well, anyway, the point being is that what they did in that movie, man, if you love the first two, you're gonna be so disappointed.
Oh no!
And then if you like it, just don't get mad at me. Be like, thanks for lowering my expectations enough to like it, because it's just the worst writing. It commits like every like crime like that you can imagine. So here's what they do: instead of giving the bad guy any sort of like people shit on Marvel for bad villains, but like even when they're bad, they kind of try. Where it's like, all right, I mean, there's this crappy reason. In this movie, there's no crappy reason. He just occasionally kicks the shit out of a goat or cuts its horn off, and it's just like, oh well, I hate him because he's mean to animals. So why is he the bad guy? Well, because he kicked that goat and he's gonna bomb some people or take money or do bad guy stuff. But what's his motives? Why is he bad and evil? Because he kicks a goat. That's that's kind of it, and it's just.
Is that based on an Adam Sandler sketch where he's the abused goat?
No, I hope there's some sort of hidden meaning to it, because just the movie first time movie made me angry in a while. It was a good anger. I needed to get it out. But to tie that all together, it's like it's cheap like that, where it's like instead of taking the time to be like believe in his, have some sort of understanding in the villain. She's like, just hate him because he hurts animals. Or instead of feeling like actual consequence because there's stakes based on the story or the puzzle or the, mechanics behind the game, instead feel consequence because go 30, 29, 20. You're just like, fuck. Okay. First of all, save it. And then it's like, you can't. So that just cost you 6 seconds.
Yeah,
fucking checkerboarded out.
I hate it when they lock you out of saving.
Yeah, so no, I don't like them. I remember Larabow too. That really stressed me out at the end with the Reaper. So,
what about what about a game where it's an obvious storyline, like say Conquest of Camelot? Your job is you have to rescue all the knights, but then once you get the Holy Grail, if you don't rescue all of them, you're all like, oh, you have sin burdening stuff. And then you end up like getting bad things happen to you at the end if you don't. But you're clearly like, that is the point of the game. You're supposed to do the thing. If you're like not going to do the thing they're telling you to do, then you're not playing the game right, or you should assume that it's not going to go well for you.
Okay, and just to clarify too, so it's not like a dead end or you lost the game. It's more like the bad ending.
Yeah, you kind of die.
But the game, okay. And this is we're always in weird spoiler territory, 32 years past these points, but still, like,
Sorry.
no, not you. For what I'm about to say, like for Gabriel Knight, okay, because you having just recently done that, and we just done a show on it, so they can see it coming. There's the lesser ideal ending, right, where it's just like like a lesser cutscene. Is that kind of what you're referring to? Where, like, if you don't do the absolute right thing, you get the kind of bad ending where even if you die, there wasn't more game.
Or if you don't do everything you were supposed to do, or you can make it all the way through to the game and you get an ending, but your ending is subpar. And that doesn't necessarily mean with points. And is that concurrent with Colonel's Bequest, where you can not solve things and still get a rating, even if it's a crappy rating?
Right. That's a really good point. And there's so many ways to do this. Like, Gabriel Knight, Whispers of a Machine for a more recent one, which is just an awesome game from the people who did Kathy Rain and our friend Ivy Duper does the protagonist voice in it. Like Gabriel Knight, where it's kind of like the ending is more decision based, so it's almost like you can save it and get both of them in the same night, right? So so for the sake of what you're bringing up, just to break it down even further, could we kind of branch it into categories of like the end? Like, one of them is like things throughout the entire game were missed or done differently that led to this, and then there's like you made the bad choice at the very end sort of thing, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, because one of them, it's like you're going to do something bad at the beginning, like miss some inventory item, and then you get all the way to the end of the game and you're like, haha, I can't finish it. But like other ones, you can get to the end and you get the ending, but the ending's just a bad ending.
Yeah, well, as long as you get the ending, I'm okay with it. Long story short, because otherwise, a dead end's unforgivable design wise, right? So that's 100%. So as long as I'm okay with the bad ending, because like you said, then there's the appeal for replay, because that might even be the biggest appeal for me personally for replay, because then I just kind of beat myself up, like, well, what did I do wrong? Which could make me go back and do it sooner than later. So. Yeah. What about you? What's your yes or no on those, if it's that clear?
I think if it's clear, yeah, it's acceptable. I've moved on to the next topic already in my head. I was thinking about puzzles like speaking of boots. I was thinking of puzzles in like what's that?
You're allowed to get bored of the topic you brought up, so I'm cool with it.
Okay. I was thinking of puzzles in like Quest for Glory 5, and then you're trying to, like, say you're a thief and there's an animated puzzle where the figure does different things and you have to copy it to something else, remember what they are, and then match them later. Or in Dr. Brains, where in number 4, Quest for Glory 4, you have an Antwerp and you're trying to get through a puzzle. Like, those are fun, and they're not super duper arcade like, but they're a game and an activity you actually have to do to accomplish something. What do you think of those? I think they're fun because they're not super hard. They're accessible and reasonable, and you can even change difficulty on a slider in some of those games, like Quest for Glory. I think they thought of that being a problem for people.
They did, and it's funny because your examples are all come back to the Coles being involved. I guess maybe specifically, I'm not sure about 4, but Corey, as far as Dr. Brain's concerns, I wonder if that's like, so actually you could just we've had him. We've been lucky enough to have him on the show twice, but without even having him here, we could almost imagine the assumed answer of just like that's something that tickles probably both of them. I'm kind of feeling a more Corey vibe from it specifically. I could be wrong. But yeah, just that specific angle of puzzle. But yeah, I think they're great. I guess the only annotation I would make would be to say that, like, and they did this extremely well. And I honestly can't think of a bad example, but just in case, I'll throw it out there. Is like, you definitely have to know that it's important to remember. And if anything, games probably are too on the nose with that, so we're good. Like, games are usually like, hey, I don't have an example. It's too many knows. Look, all right, let me move on to one on my list here. I got again, so we're going back and forth, and maybe we should have said this in the beginning, but also who cares? is that, Anna's kind of got like just a casual thoughts list, and I've got kind of my rabbit hole list or whatever. So as we weave back and forth to the rabbit hole one, or the populace, let's say, is when stupidly obvious works and is logical and cheeky. It's a mouthful. So when stupidly obvious works and it's also logical and cheeky. So an example would be, and this was brought up several times. This exact example was the banana in the tailpipe in Space Quest 5. Like, people bloody loved that. It was rare to see something brought up more than once, much less like 5 times. And yeah, this came up a lot. People were just really tickled by that. It seemed like it was like this, like, surprising. Maybe it's because I think a lot of them found it maybe a little refreshing, like almost as a break. Like, finally something kind of surprisingly obvious. But like, if it wasn't also funny, if it was just like mundane, like the key in the keyhole working isn't surprisingly obvious, it's just obvious, right? So it's got to be like kind of fun, and then also kind of logical, let's just say, right? A banana in a tailpipe isn't really logical, but like it's definitely one adventure game logical, which is a whole different thing. And two, like, you got the bloody, what's the more stereotypical potato in the tailpipe? Like,
yeah,
it's maybe a stretch, not a leap, or whatever. But the point being is that that's something that the populace seems to say we really like. And I was just wondering, obviously, your bloody thoughts on it.
I agree. It takes me directly to King's Quest 4, where you're tickling the uvula with a peacock feather. I mean, obviously, you have to get the feather before you're swallowed by the whale, and you have to understand that the shark's not always going to kill you to get swallowed by the whale. But once you're inside of the whale, you have this kind of fun environment. You've got a message in the bottle. You have to climb this crazy tongue, and then you have to tickle a uvula so you're like sneezed out of a whale. It's ridiculous, but it's also kind of logical considering the situation that you're in, and thinking about sort of older fairy tales. It all connects in, but it's also quite silly.
That's such a good bloody example. I think we should just quickly move on and call that like the highlight of the episode.
Well, this leads us right. It leads us to an email that we got from a listener that I thought perhaps we could throw into this episode, and it kind of relates. This listener, his name is Robin Spark, listening from over in Australia. And hey, Robin. He was thinking of the Latin phrase I'm learning to pronounce, because I've never been good with pronouncing names. But from what I have is, Deus ex machina. And what was your pronunciation on this word, Paul?
That phrase? One. Jeez Louise. Deus ex machina. Deus ex machina. Deus ex
so machina. One of those, and it's a Latin phrase, which is why we're probably having a bit of trouble trying to figure out how to pronounce it. But what it's about is the crazy storylines that developers shoehorn into a game to get it out the door. So it was originally described as an ancient plot device used in Greek and Roman theater. It is now the phrase used to describe any situation where something unexpected or implausible is brought into the storyline to resolve situations or disentangle a plot. And thanks, I really appreciate you, Robin, bringing that up, because that's a good segue into what about super silly things that make the plot go forward?
Yeah.
But, are there because, and is it because the developer ran out of ideas and there's nothing else they can do? Or is it an in-joke, like between the developers of the company that, like this was said at a meeting and it turned into a thing? Like, there might be other reasons other than it being a stupid, illogical joke. Something.
Yeah, exactly. It's really tough. I mean, I think we're going to simplify it a little bit for the sake of like adventure games and say, like, that for the sake of solving a puzzle, maybe, instead of changing the whole story arc, right? Because I guess, and from what you're saying, from more definition, right, where Deus ex machina, be like is put in as like a plot device to change the plot. Blah, blah, blah. So I'm just kind of saying that some of our examples or whatever, or at least my single example, is more just puzzle based, where it's just like, I feel like Deus Ex Machina is used in adventure game puzzles just all the time, where it's like, let's just totally just shoehorn this in. And yeah, I mean, I guess if I wanted to be pedantic and really fight it, I could say that it does it completely changed the plot, because if you can't, for example, put a pie in a Yeti's face, then you can't progress the plot of the game. And that's just, uncalled for, and whatever the definition of Makina is, because it's kind of out of nowhere, and I've defended it before to a degree. Not defended it like, all right, take it easy. I've just, I've tried to just cool it off a little, put a little water on it in the past. But either way, I think it fits that category.
Well, there's a few, it can also be combined, like inventory combination, and this idea could be there too. Like, oh my God, these two items should never be combined. It's absolutely ridiculous, but they need another item for the game. So you're going to combine these two items that make no sense. And I mean, anybody's game could be guilty of that. And I don't think that's a bad game. I think that's kind of funny to me. Like, oh my God, how could you? Oh, you could make that with that item. Oh, that's ridiculous. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of it kind of weaves in and out of the prior one we brought up, with the stupid obvious works, right, with the tailpipe thing, where there's a connection there, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because less manly, right? We've talked about that on previous episodes, where you have to like share your dream with somebody else. Or like cat hair mustache, Gabriel Knight 3, people make fun of that one online a lot. There's just, some random stuff. The King's Quest 5 example.
Yeah, exactly. And to Robin directly too, we definitely have to consider like a full episode on more the traditional definition of this, as far as like, let's say a single thing that changed the entire plot. And like, I have one in my head, but I'm not confident that it exactly fits the bill. And I just really like the game and don't want to be wrong, because whatever. So yeah, we'll have to give that one some more time in the future too, because it's a really interesting thought, and it's something that's definitely used commonly, I think, in adventure games.
And text games, which is a type of an adventure game. Babelfish in the Ear, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, games like that, where you have to do something really ridiculous, or a really ridiculous order of operations, and you're going to keep dying, and it's tracking your moves. Or even a game like Bureaucracy, where everything you do wrong, your blood pressure goes up, and it's all bureaucratically based on information you give them at the beginning of the game. And it's funny, but is it funny enough to like deal with you dying all the time? Rumpelstiltskin is one of those ridiculous ones where, you have to come up with not only what the name is, but then you have to like do a brand new phonetic alphabet just to figure out the rest of the puzzle.
Yeah, I'm struggling on my end. I think I'm overanalyzing the ones that are coming in my head, because like Lucy, all I can really think off the bat is like is Space Quest 5, the jumping off point of the overarching plot of that game is pretty damn ridiculous. But I think it maybe comes too early, right, to fit the definition. So yeah. Anyway, that one's a good. That would make a good episode as far as games. But
Space Quest does that. They'll kill you, but they'll tell you what you should have done earlier. They'll be like, "Oh man, you died because you didn't have an item you were supposed to have. But if you'd have gotten this earlier, maybe you wouldn't have died."
Right. Yeah. See, that's fair too, I guess. Yeah. I guess it almost reminds me of like watching old movies, right? Like, I have to be in the mood for it nowadays, because the pacing is crazy slow. I mean, really, the pacing of modern stuff is crazy fast, I guess. And there's something to be said, right? Older movies can be more artful, blah blah blah. There's a lot of positives.
Pacing.
You got to be in the mood for it, because that shit takes forever.
Yeah.
Somebody rewatch Jaws or something. Just you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to like sell getting my kid to watch Crocodile Dundee versus Happy Gilmore today, and I tell you, Crocodile Dundee didn't win, as awesome as it was in the 80s.
The pacing,
I'm like,
right?
It's Paul Hogan, and everybody looked at me. So I played the beginning of it, and it's all like overview of the city and people in an office and old clothing talking, and it didn't win.
Yeah, it's because even in that 80s era, like, because I've done that too with my son, where I try to watch, trying to get him to watch things that I loved, and it's just like, man, they'll the camera, the things like Roger Rabbit, whatever, like they'll just soak up the atmosphere of a room like for a while. Like 2 minutes to this generation, the last two generations
let's
is a long
appreciate
time.
the art. That was a good, I was just talking about Roger Rabbit today. Oh my God. Because my son was like, here, personal story moment. We were talking about the only time any of us had ever had to leave a movie partway through in a theater. And that was mine. When I was 9 years old, my grandma took me to a theater in Toronto together and we watched Roger Rabbit. And it got to the part where the shoe ended up having to go into the melting pot. And she said, well, I never, because she was already quite frustrated with the movie being not particularly decent, probably much too sexualized. And she removed me from the theater immediately.
Right. That's awesome. That's and she removed me from there immediately. That's I guess that's a generational thing. I guess I'm
she
trying
did.
to remember.
She huffed all the way back on the bus. Just I can't believe it. It's just, my friend said it would be a good movie though, and of course it was my favorite movie after that.
Right? Yeah, and it was taboo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was a good-looking cartoon.
So good.
She's made me wonder, where the line is.
Yeah, no line. Ain't no line. We grew up with furries and stuff. We played these adventure games. I played Quest for Glory. I've seen them dance. I'm in.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna miraculously finish my goddamn point with this pacing thing.
Yeah, please.
What I was trying to say was this started with you kind of mentioning, a puzzle where it'd be like, oh, it was in Space Quest. Would be like, well, earlier you should have done this, and I think it's completely. It should be left alone where it was, but also adjusted for the times now, right? Where that's maybe an example of an '80s thing doing '80s pacing. Where it's like, oh, fuck, I have to go all the way back there. And it's like, again, back in the day, that was maybe one of 3 games that you had at a time. So it's, you'll do it. You'll give it the time because you're tired of, the other one. Sorry, shady looking box truck passed by. So my point being is like, yeah, it fits for that time, and I want them left in my classics, but I think it's also like going forward, it's like, yeah, we can't do that shit anymore.
So what about partners in a game using different characters to accomplish different things? What do you think of that sort of situation? Not gonna like it. Not gonna like it. All right. When I played Maniac Mansion when I was younger, I didn't get very far at first because I found it confusing because I just kept letting different characters die and then the game would end. So I wasn't very good, like not die, captured, but I wasn't very good at it. It did take more figuring out. There's a lot of thought. It's a multi-directional way to think when there's multiple characters. Though.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and to your point, it kind of takes some getting used to, and I think that's why for a lot of people, Day of the Tentacle is the preferred, I guess, out of the two, or just probably wildly more popular because it's almost like by the time that one came out, not to mention all the amazing things it does as a game and all the things it does differently and the advantages that it had as far as graphics and voices and blah blah blah, but like. You have more of a time to like you understand how that works now. You've been through you've been through Maniac Mansion. You've had experiences in other LucasArts games, even if it's temporary, of switching characters. And it's I don't know, maybe it's something that takes some getting used to, but yeah, I adore it. I think it's awesome. It's got to be used correctly, but it's probably one of my favorite devices or mechanics, whatever, in adventure games. And I don't think it's underused, but it's not overused.
Well, if you haven't played Toonstruck, you don't even have a voice right now.
Wow, I feel like a woman in the 50s.
Should go home and play the game now.
Jesus, yeah. I guess I'll just make you a sandwich if you want to tell us a little bit about Toonstruck.
It's got a lot of famous people. You've got Ben Stein, you've got Christopher Lloyd, you've got Dan Castellaneta, you've got Tim Curry, you've got 2 characters, Drew Blank, that's obviously Christopher Lloyd, you've got Flux Wildly, and he's like a cute little like alien-y creature from another land. And then you're an animator, you get sucked in. I've talked about it before, but you get to navigate the world with 2 different characters because each one has different skill sets. And that's what always charmed me to that game, is that blur of reality and fiction, but it's all fiction.
Wow. I didn't actually know a lot of that, especially the actors. Well, the actors part of that.
It's big
Yeah, I was
names.
crazy prepared for that. Yeah, I do want to. It definitely makes you want to play it more. I think you got. Isn't that Homer? Is it or no?
It is.
Is it
Yeah,
Homer
it
or
is.
like?
It is. Yeah, he's Flux. Yeah.
Yeah, I would you. I don't know. Do you think it's okay? Okay, here's one of my favorites. Sorry, I just cut myself off. That was weird. Um, I really like Resonance, and I want to say that because I think it's that and a Golden Wake. I think are usually towards the bottom of the Wadget Ice sales, or, which says a lot about just the modern adventure game sales because Wadget Ice a large part of the top of all that. And just it's weird because those two are kind of maybe my favorites. If I had to just on the spot say so, like everybody who's been listening for a while knows how much I love Golden Wake. But as far as like a dead favorite, but Resonance is definitely a second because it's a really really good game, really fun story, and it's got that mechanic where you're it has a Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, etc. vibe, but you get to kind of travel a little limitedly, albeit you get to travel around like a little town, and like it felt like an evolution of that, I guess I would just say. So anyway, if anybody likes games where you can switch characters, check out. Actually, wait, no, check out our game, The Phantom Fellows.
There's lots of ideas out there, but
Hold
that's the
on a
most
second.
preferable one. No subliminal
Okay.
messaging here.
If you want to play a full game where you can change characters by Resonance, for real, buy it, play it, support them. It's awesome. And then get ours when it comes out. But for real, I guess that's kind of stupid. We've been going this whole conversation, and I was like, yeah, it's one of my favorite. I'm definitely not going to listen to this episode back. It's cringy. It's one of my favorite things. Not even kind of crossing the link myself. Like, of course it is. So, because it's in that. But yeah, speaking of favorite things that man, if you could assemble your own little wish list of stuff you want to put in an adventure you're going to make yourself and get yourself all hyped up about it as I did. I was like, I want to be able to change characters. And in my head at the time, I'm like, there's not enough of that. And again, I don't really stand by that, but it just, I wanted more of it, let's just say. So let's do that. I'm a little kind of simple. So that's why I was like, let's just change between two people. That'll be,
Four is a little confusing. Like I said, that I like a lot of features, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. So I want to balance between the two.
Exactly. That was definitely my thoughts at the time, where I'm like, let's stick to two in that regard. And then I'd read on those forums in this rabbit hole, people had brought this up and what was, pardon my son, I don't know if I can edit that. I'm not going to try. It never came up negatively, which was a note I made, possibly for myself. Please don't be the first. And one thing people said that just made it even better, or maybe it was just the examples that were given that I took note of were that when you could change players, it was really nice when they had a specific ability different from the next, right? Like a reason to, and even a Maniac Mansion where they're all just human kids. You got the smart one and
or ghosts, right? Blackwell Chronicles and stuff, and being able to switch between different characters and different people know different information.
Exactly. Being able to take advantage of the different things different people could do, because right, it's kind of. I mean, it's not the only reason you could change, right? Because one of the puzzles I don't know. I guess people use the word study, and when I use it, I feel like undeserving of it, because it's like, I mean, what is studying? It's just God bless you. It's just bloody. Nowadays it's just like watching a YouTube video to a degree, where it's like, well, I was studying this the other night, and that's how it's commonly used and accepted.
The school of YouTube.
Yes, the school of YouTube. But I was just rewatching and then playing for myself the puzzle of Maniac Mansion of Weird Ed's, where you have to get into Weird Ed's room. And that's just a good example of you don't necessarily need two different abilities in that puzzle. Actually, you don't, period, at all. You just need two different people in two different places. So it can be done in that regard. Resonance is maybe it's not as far as one's dead and the other's not. Like the Phantom Fellows, other Ghostbase games are available. But come on, I'm dropping all the other, why should I names? It's not as extreme as that, but it's maybe not as just like, two teenagers as some of the Maniac Mansion choices were, right? Because let's be real, like in that game, and to be totally fair to them, this was, the mid 80s. This was cutting edge stuff. But nowadays it's like maybe instead of just, because like, you got like, I don't want to crap on two characters and then be wrong, but maybe like Razor and Dave. I don't know. You get two characters where it's not like they don't necessarily maybe do anything necessarily special. I can't think of anything off the bat. But that was that ladder from earlier in the show.
You were warned, though. It still doesn't fit in his pocket. He never really stopped trying.
But anyway, sorry, I made that way too long-winded. Just to say that Resonance is somewhere in the middle where it's like one of the characters, might have access to like police stuff or press stuff, etc. And so you get to use maybe not abilities, but or skills, but
Ooh, you reminded me of something. You reminded me, what about items in games? So say to finish something in a game, you need to look through the flyers or the pamphlets or the National Enquirer type versions that are in the game goodies to be able to access things in the game. And I'm not necessarily talking copy protection, but at the same time I am, because they're kind of intertwined a little bit, aren't they?
They really are. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good one. So I'm just having to soak that in for a second because I didn't catch that on your notes. I just doubt I'm like, that wasn't on mine, right? Fuck, that would be bad.
It was one of those things that kind of developed as I was wording it.
That's awesome. Okay, all right, so give me another example. Or
yeah, what was it? I just said it was so good I forgot.
I can stop and download this and we can listen to it.
That's a great idea.
Look, it's getting late in the
documentation in games. Yeah, my thoughts on it, I think it's fun, and it kind of, if the documentation is fun and it's not like rote documentation, there's something to it. Is it cheeky? Is it something that you want to read anyways? Does it add to the game? Is it just lore? Like, for example, if you're looking at King's Quest, there's little write-ups and there's interesting information about Daventry, but if you don't care about lore, unless you're trying to do a copy protection, maybe you're not reading it unless you're super into the game. Something like Space Quest, they're handing you really, really, really funny paraphernalia, stuff that you want to look at. Leisure Suit Larry too, stuff that you want to look at because it's funny. You're flying with Dork Airlines, but at the same time, it's going to refer to it. Do I think it's always copy protection? I mean, yes. But you can certainly make copy protection a little bit more fun than the cliff climbing in King's Quest.
Yeah, I mean, and to their credit too, because I know that there's like a certain like shame or like copy protect. Like there's a certain skeeviness about it. But to their credit, most of the time, all of them, the copy protection was incredibly creative. Like they didn't. There's definitely exceptions. I did that disclaimer. They went pretty far. Like and I think a lot of the regards too is like these games are often always I think made by nerds. And so like we want to make you want to make lore for your own stuff, and you're probably going to have stuff in your head that never gets heard, and it's like, well, here's a little way to let it out, and we can make a copy protection. So I love it. I think it's awesome. I would even extend it to the category of like Colonel's Bequest, where it comes with the notebook.
The magnifying glass and your own little pencil and all your little bits and pieces. I think that brings you into the game. And I think that's what Roberta was looking for in that game. You are Laura Bow as versus like the hero in Quest for Glory. You are the hero. You have to sort of forge your own identity, but you are Laura Bow in the Laura Bow games, but you're also going to forge your own identity as in how you investigate a case and what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. But it's also time-based. So it has a lot of things going on in that game.
Yeah. Well, and I think we could have whatever covered that more on the time thing from way earlier in the episode. But there is a different, unless I'm mistaken. Trying to keep a bunch in here at once, but unless I'm mistaken, I think the way they handle time in Larabo 1 is much different than not 2, but different than the Reaper sequence in 2, right? Where it's like Larabo 1 is more of like a time, an event based timing, right? Where it's like when you do the thing, the time changes. But again, I'm not super confident enough to really even go deep enough into that. But I guess to your ultimate point, I was thinking too is Larabo, Roberta's, her idea was to make you feel like her, etc. I completely agree, and I think they nailed that. And I think adding, for example, that red gel, decoder as a magnifying glass in the box. And if that's not assumed news, I really don't know. I'd be curious out of our listeners how many of you just knew that. Probably just most of you, but yeah. So there is the red magnifying thingy, whatever. Really struggling with how to word that. Doesn't matter. The point is like if somebody said, okay, we'll take away the copyright protection from that game, we'll erase it from history, but that also takes away the magnifying glass thing. I'd be like, no, leave it, because what's the bloody problem with copyright protection?
Yeah. What about Police Quest, identifying perps or identifying fingerprints? Those are good skills to have. You got to learn how to identify the perp. You got to pay attention. You got to learn how to identify fingerprints. I went off on a whole thing. I was obsessed with fingerprints. I'm learning about fingerprints, taking fingerprints with real ink of everybody in the house. They were all good at humoring me. That's all good stuff. And it's copy protection.
Yeah. And it's, maybe it's just the time we live in now, but like, it's like, I don't know, for myself, after eating like tons of junk food, you kind of crave substance, right? Like protein or lettuce, or I don't know. So you crave some sort of substance, and it's like, yeah, maybe it's that same sort of feeling in that regard too, or it's like just wanting. Nowadays, you have. Sorry, I didn't give enough back there for you guys. Sorry. Nowadays, with Steam and with everything being completely digital, GOG, blah blah blah, Firepower, blah blah blah, is manuals. Everything's PDFs, and like maybe I don't know, maybe. I romanticized it a bit, or maybe we didn't appreciate it enough at the time in the contrast. But it's like nowadays, I definitely kind of crave the substance of like holding on to something physical, or writing something down. And to our mate Mark Fillion, to his credit and to his upcoming game, Chinatown Detective Agency, do check out the demo. Wishlist on Steam and be out really soon. But
I agree with what you're about to say.
Thank you. Preemptive agreement is always confidence inspiring. is the idea for his game, Loving Carmen Sandiego, which is another example to this lovely point you bring up, Anna, is
which is way easier as a grown up. By the way, I found out.
Oh, good. Thank God.
Yeah. It's very true. I was playing it with my son. I'm like, son, you suck. But I'm pretty good now.
Nerd. That's awesome. Sorry, this is my cat lunchbox. Distracting me there, but really knocking me off the ball there. Lunchbox, damn it. All right, well, I don't know. I'm letting it go.
Time is an illusion. Lunchtime doubly so. Lunchbox even more so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he didn't appreciate that at all.
Never do.
All right, listen, we got two more. I got two more, unless you have any. I've gotten really bad with words the last 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and wrap myself up. That's for sure. But I'll go with one now, and then if you got one, go after me, and I'll do the other one. But okay, the second most favorite thing that I had found, second to combining inventory, was narrative/dialogue puzzles. And it was a two-part. I'm kind of merging two together because they work really well together, and for the sake of time. But we're gonna just say narrative dialogue puzzles and clues throughout the game, in-game clues. So, a great example of this would be all of Lamplight City. and maybe if you want something like super aficionado-y, Sherlock Holmes, the serrated scalpel, the pendant puzzle. And if you get that reference, then I will hand mail you one single gold foil star sticker. But also, I please don't make me. It's bad form.
He doesn't go to the post office very often, I assure you.
No, I don't. I still need to send Rick Loom. I'm so sorry, mate. It's been at least 3
The idea
years.
of this happening is not looming quite yet.
It's almost time to go. I mean, these kind of puzzles are deeply satisfying, right? We were just talking about Larabow. I probably could have put that in as an example too, but obviously bring up something fresh. Lamplight City is amazing. Please go get that game, or at least buy it, because Francisco is just the greatest. Sherlock Holmes Serrated Scalpel is, I think, a really, really underrated adventure game, as any of the good non-Sierra LucasArts ones tend to be. But go check that out. God, that game's so beautiful, and I'm not quoting Francisco here, but speaking of him and just somewhat knowing him and watching his streams and things like that, I get the feeling, maybe this is really obvious and I sound like an idiot right now, but I get the feeling that he's quite inspired by Serrated Scalpel. So there's a connection there. But anyway, the bloody point is that with the narrative dialogue puzzles, they are deeply satisfying, right? They capture the essence of adventure games. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I agree with you.
I wrote something neat down. It just caught my eye where Graham Nelson once said that an adventure game was a narrative at war with a crossword, and I think that's kind of evident when it comes to narrative dialogue puzzles, right? Investigatory, branching dialogue trees, things like that. Adventure games can expose like the best and worst of themselves there, right? Because it's like,
what about go ahead. Sorry.
No, please.
What about okay, so you're doing a dialogue puzzle and you hit and you say the wrong thing and you don't get a chance to go back and say it differently, or you have an option of 5 things and they're all kind of correct and it doesn't matter which one you pick, you're going to still progress in the conversation the same with a little bit of variance, or it's you have to pick the right one, or there's a lot of different ways that conversation in a game can be set up to structure you to push forward.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You're right, because it's like the consequence of like you need some element of excitement if it's just going to be pages of dialogue, right? So you want to feel like if you say the wrong thing, it's you're going to not solve the crime, or you're going to piss the person off, or
which some games are like that. You get categorized, and the game is and that's a really popular thing I find with modern day adventures. The game is paying attention and evolving depending on how you act, not in a quest for glory, honor versus bringing your skills up kind of way, but that the conversation is going to move forward. And even in RPGs, that's a big deal too, right? You have to be really careful how you respond in a conversation. You might be starting a war with another clan, or something big might be going on. So it's a bigger deal.
Right. Yeah. Widely accepted. Yeah. I'm glad you elaborated on it, especially with the RPG point. Yeah. So yeah, it's extremely natural in that sense to make it, I guess, just like any real conversation. If you stop and call somebody, I don't want to get the bleep thing out.
Something.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say a fun word and bleep it, but who cares? It's late.
Yeah.
Shit, I think it's Monday too. I got to put this out. Anyway, buddy.
You're ambitious tonight.
Jesus.
Hope everybody appreciates this on the day that it comes out.
Yeah, let's really wrap this up. Actually, I'll just say on that note that you have adventure games have to give you this illusion of choice, but it's definitely an illusion, right? Because it is a pre-programmed piece of script that ultimately is going to end in well, I mean, it could end in 7 ways or 20 ways, but they're all predicted ways that you had to be programmed in.
Stop looking behind the curtain. Do you ever, that moment when you find out, when that realization hits you? I remember it hitting me at some point. I don't know, as a teen in my 20s, and going, "What's the point?" For a while, it's just going to happen the way it's supposed to happen, anyways. It doesn't matter what I click on or what I say or what I do. It's like that phase where I'm just
Right,
I don't
right.
feel that way now. There's a little bit more broadness to the choices, but some games are still kind of like that. It's like do, click the thing, do the thing. But there's a lot of mystery, especially if you include deaths in classic games and different puzzles and getting older and forgetting what it was like before. There is reasons, especially if you're emotionally attached, to play games again.
Definitely. Yeah, I would almost wonder or kind of knee-jerk think that perhaps at the time that was happening to you, I would almost more be keen to blame the games, the writing at the time, maybe, or and I could be totally wrong, just taking a stab at it. But I mean, I feel like it's ultimately the job of the game to be to not make you feel like that. Like, what's the point? Da da da. And that is the ultimately, I guess, the point of what we're both building towards is the difficulty and also in the greatness of a wonderful narrative investigatory kind of dialogue puzzle is that you have to feel like you solved something that ultimately was always there, and that can totally be done, right? There can be a bunch of different ways, and some are more optimal than others, and blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, you have to bury that illusion of choice the best that you can. And then to your original point from a minute ago, having the consequences. And to your point, really at the beginning, I should say, is what happens when like the player has to like start all over again, and yeah, then it's really tricky because it's like you want those consequences, but you don't want the player to have to go through 20 more pages all over again and lose their shit like I am on my own sentence. So I'm done.
Yeah.
Are we done? You done?
That's okay. No, I just, my last thing, this is a quick one. This is a quick and easy one, and I already know your opinion on it. So, mazes, are they time passers? Are they puzzles? Do they have any value? Go.
I'm kind of like we said earlier with or I think you alluded earlier to hymn books and stuff like that. And like as far as like ploys, like that's the thing I'm skeptical or suspicious of. I really do feel like mazes were time fillers because like I don't know, Space Quest 5. We did that the Fate of Atlantis episode, and I banged on from there on outwards about how it's the perfect game in my opinion, in the sense that it makes. I don't think any really mistakes. Like it's I mean, maybe there's like one or whatever, but it's like it's humanly perfect.
Really good.
And like I remember that I really wanted something else for the perfect game title, more than just Fate of Atlantis. I'm like, surely, and Space Quest 5 like came pretty close to me for what I like, and then the maze just ruined it. It can't be the perfect game with the maze in it.
No.
Yeah, I hate them. But
it's
I do like
is it
like
down to
Space Quest 2.
hours and developers so they can say, oh, this game is 36 hours? Like, I've always thought that they're like, well, we can assume if they don't know the maze, it's going to take them at least 1 hour. So we can add that to like the game time.
Yeah, and that's luckily not a concern games have nowadays. I think people, at least from what I see on Twitter, largely prefer like the 4 to 8 hour, or even let's say 6 to 12 hour block of game. Which I don't know. For me, it just all depends. Like I think I would say like 8 hours is probably ideal, and then I think of like Thimbleweed Park that it took me like 20 plus, and I loved every second. So, but anyway, yeah, mazes. The mazes that I'm going to hopefully safely assume most of us are thinking about, especially after talking about Space Quest 5, would be the ones I hate. But there were like decent mazes like Space Quest 2 where I don't even know if that's a maze, but like, where the vine, it's kind of a maze. There's only one route through though. I don't know.
It's kind of like Leisure Suit Larry, where you have to go through to rescue Passionate Patty, and then you're going through all like the vines, and Al did the thing where he flipped all the screens and stuff. It's kind of a maze, but it's kind of like you can only go through the one way also in 3. Right? So.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure there's a rigid definition out there between what we're banging on. But yeah, I mean, then I'm thinking of King's Quest. Goodness.
The one, well, there's the desert in 5.
Is it 5? Yeah, 5 is the one with the castle maze, right?
Should be. I think so. Yeah, I don't think that the castle, well, the desert's the maze in 5 mostly. This isn't making us sound super professional.
No. All right. Well, I guess we could stop there then.
Okay. On that note,
I'm pretty sure I'm right. I mean, if I'm not,
I think so.
At no point did we ever say this isn't the factual show. This is the bantery show.
We reviewed that before the episode when we pumped ourselves up. Just remember, people aren't coming to us for facts. Right. Okay, go.
Yeah, exactly. And I said that earlier, like there's a rigid other show that does facts. I don't know. There might be, I'm not sure. That is not a dig or whatever.
About Sierra adventure games. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots.
The only podcast. Well, I know there's like 2 or 3 adventure game podcasts. There's a few,
they are out there.
I don't listen to them only because, it's adventure games just all the time for me in my life. And so I listen to my MotoGP podcast there.
No, it's hard. I made the mistake of looking up what you're supposed to do as a successful podcast on Google, and I'm cursing myself just to this day because I'm like, I didn't need to know that I wasn't doing all of those things. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I think we were smart enough not to assume we'd get rich from this someday. All that sweet adventure game money.
Yeah. No. So, that was it. I mean, adventure game puzzles, love them, hate them. They happened. They're still happening. People still want them, whether they're timed, whether they're mazes, or, you have to combine your inventory items, or you have to choose a different character, or you just need to figure something out, or you need to pick something up and put it somewhere else. There's all sorts of reasons to love them or hate them, but without them, the games would be pretty boring.
Exactly, and that was lovely. I would be curious to hear from you guys sincerely on what your favorite type of puzzle is. Buddy, let us know wherever you say stuff. Say that. That'd be awesome. Because again, I'm still just doing my terrible pie chart, and trying to again just better understand what people love the most. So let us know for sure on that. You could bloody say hello to us on Facebook or a page in a group. Classic Gamers Guild on Facebook, and you could also say hi to us on Twitter, if you want to, at CGG Podcast. And my goddamn notes app won't open, so I don't know what to say next. Here it comes. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so say hello to Anna on Twitter at CGG Podcast. Say hello to me on Twitter at Phantom Fellows. We're on Instagram at CGG Podcast. Send us an email. That'd be fun. Send us an email.
We even read them out. See earlier in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you, Robin, again for your email. We really appreciate it, mate. And we're definitely going to be keeping a bloody mind on doing a whole episode on that for more plot-based things. But anyway, send us an email, mail@classicgamersguild.com. Thank you very much to all of our Patreons. We really appreciate you guys. I don't know. We have some stuff we need to get out to you, but also it's like a little lewd, so maybe we shouldn't. We were talking about earlier, like it was funny, but like, I don't know, know us like that. I mean, not us. Anna's very happily married to James, who's just the greatest guy ever. I'm not sure who's a better goaltender, him or I. Probably him. I think he wants it more. Anyway, fucking point is to thank our Patreons. That was actually somehow the point, it turns out. So thank you guys. We love you. We're also on Patreon. Wishlist our adventure game. Phantom Fellows. It's on Steam. It's on Fireflower. I hope it's on GOG one day. And if it's not, then I'll be like, good, I never wanted it on there anyway. So, but check us out, phantomfellows.com, or just those words, but in Steam. And that's it. So, that should have been the ending to this whole thing. If I could go back 3 years from now, instead of saying don't do a murder, not knowing that would somehow stick for some reason, I would have just ended it with a good old-fashioned, don't do a murder.